We made our landfill on Aeolia Island, domain of Aeolus. Oh my god. I tried doing the just start immediately, but it stabbed me in the back immediately. Aeolus Hypotetes, the wind king, dear to the gods who never die, an isle adrift upon the sea, ringed around with brazen ramparts on a sheer cliffside. 12 children had old Aeolus at home, 6 daughters and 6 lusty sons, and he gave girls to boys to be their gentle brides. Now those lords, in their parents' company, sup every day in hall. A royal feast, with fumes of sacrifice and winds that pipe round hollow courts. And all the night they sleep on beds of filigree beside their ladies. Here we put in, lodged in the town and palace, where Aeolus played host to me. He gave me 1 full month to hear the tale of Troy, the ships, and the return of the Achaeans, all which I told him point by point in order. When in return I asked his leave to sail and asked provisioning, he stinted nothing, adding a bull's hide sewn from neck to tail into a mighty bag, bottling storm winds. For Zeus had long ago made Aeolus warden of winds, or rouse or calm at will. He wedged this bag under my afterdeck, lashing the neck with shining silver wire, so not a breath got through. Only the west wind he lofted for me in a quartering breeze to take my squadron spanking home. Spanking. All right, so basically what's happening, they ended up on Aeolia with Aeolus, and he showed them around, and then they told him stories, and he told them stories. He gave them some gifts, and he set up the ships for them to go out, and his squadron spanking home. No luck. The fair wind failed us when our prudence failed. 9 days and nights we sailed without event, till on the 10th we raised our land. We neared it, and saw men building fires along the shore. But now, being weary to the bone, I fell into a deep slumber. I had worked the sheet 9 days alone, and given it to no one, wishing to spill no wind on the homeward run. But while I slept, the crew began to parley. Silver and gold, they guessed, were in that bag bestowed to me by Aeolus's great heart, and no one would glance at his benchmate and say, "It never fails. He's welcome everywhere. Hail to the captain when he goes ashore. He brought along so many presents, plunder out of Troy. That's it. How about ourselves, his shipmates, all the way? Nigh home are we with empty hands, and who has gifts from Aeolus? He has. I say we ought to crack that bag. There's gold and silver plenty in that bag." Temptation had its way with my companions, and they untied the bag. Then every wind roared into hurricane. The ships went pitching west with many cries. Our land was lost. Roused up, despairing in that gloom, I thought, should I go overside for a quick finish, or clench my teeth and stay amongst the living? Down in the bilge I lay, pulling my sea cloak over my head, while the rough gale blew the ships and rueful crews near back to Aeolia. We put ashore for water, then all hands gathered alongside for a midday meal. When we had taken bread and drink, I picked 1 soldier and 1 herald to go with me and called again on Aeolus. I found him at meat with his young princess and his lady, but there besides the pillar in his portico, then we sat down silent at the open door. So basically what happened, they sailed. There was no wind, so they didn't get anywhere, and so it took them 9 days to reach the land. And once they actually reached the land, Odysseus immediately fell asleep, and then all their people were like, let's look in his gift that he was given by Aeolus. And they looked inside, and then storms. They were like, the gods did not like that. So everyone just So then the ships were blown back to Aeolia, And Odysseus, I'm pretty sure, remained on a ship that was not blown away. Or he was down in the bilge. Bilge. So let me go to images. Where is the bilge in a ship? So it's it's somewhere on a ship. So he's in the ship. Okay, so no, everyone was blown back to Iolia. Everyone, including Odysseus. And now they're going to go Iolus again. And we're going to see how Iolus is going to help them again. The sight amazed them, and they all exclaimed, "Why back again, Odysseus? What sea fiend rose in your path? Did we not launch you well for home, or for whatever land you chose?" Out of my melancholy I replied, "Mischief aboard and noddling at the tiller, a damned drowse, did for me make my loss, dear friends. You have the power." Gently I pleaded, but they turned cold and still. Said Father Aeolus, "Take yourself out of this island, creeping thing. No law, no wisdom lays it on me now to help a man the blessed gods detest. Out! Your voyage here was cursed by heaven." He drove me from the place, groan as I would, and comfortless we went again to sea. Days of it, till the men flagged at the oars. No breeze, no help in sight, by our own folly. 6 indistinguishable nights and days before we raised the Lystrigonian height and far stronghold of Lamos. In that land, the daybreak follows dusk, and so the shepherd homing calls to the coward setting out. And he who never slept could earn 2 wages, tending oxen, pasturing silvery flocks. There, where the low night path of the sun is near the sun's path by day. Did I skip? Yeah, no, I didn't. Here, then, we found a curious bay with mountain walls of stone to the left and right, and reaching far inland. A narrow entrance opening from the sea, where cliffs converged as though to touch and close. All of my squadron sheltered here, inside the cavern of this bay. Black prow by prow, those hulls were made fast in a limpid calm, without a ripple, stillness all around them. My own black ship I chose to moor alone on the seaside, using a rock for a bollard, and climbed a rocky point to get my bearings. No farms, no cultivated land appeared, but puffs of smoke rose in the wilderness. So I sent out 2 picked men and a herald to learn what race of men this land sustained. Dudum is saying, "Pigs, all I are pigs, open." I skipped the part where Odysseus dies, of course. Thank you, Dudum. Last name. So basically what's going on is that Iolus, when they went to him for help, he was like, "No, you're cursed. You're cursed. I don't like anyone who the gods don't like." So he kicked them out, and so they went back out at sea, but they were very, 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 very slow. And after 6 nights and days, they actually reached land. After those 6 days. And then eventually he sent out 2 men and a herald, whatever a herald is. Wait, let me actually look up herald. Okay, an official bringing news. So he brings out 2 people and a herald to go see who lived on this land. My party found a track, a wagon road for bringing wood down from the heights to town. And near the settlement, they met a daughter of Antiphates, the Lystrigon, a stalwart young girl, taking her pail to Artakia, the fountain where these people go for water. My fellows hailed her, put their questions to her. Who might the king be? Ruling over whom? She waved her hand, showing her father's lodge. So they approached it. In its gloom, they saw a woman like a mountain crag, the queen, and loathed the sight of her. But she, for greeting, called from the meeting ground her lord and master, Antiphates, who came down to drink their blood. He seized one man and tore him on the spot, making a meal of him. The other two leaped out of doors and ran to join the ships. Behind, he raised the whole tribe howling, countless, Lystrogenes, and more than men they seemed, gigantic when they gathered on the skyline, to shoot great boulders down from slings. And hell's own crashing rose, and crying from the ships, as planks and men were smashed to bits. Poor gobbets, the wild men speared like fish and bore away. But long before it ended in the anchorage, havoc and slaughter, I had drawn my sword and cut my own ship's cable. Men, I shouted, man the oars, and pull till your hearts break if you would put this butchery behind. The oarsmen rent the sea in mortal fear, and my ship spurted out of range, far out from that deep canyon, where the rest were lost. So we fared onward, and death fell behind, and we took breath to grieve for our companions. So basically what's going on, the two people and the herald, they went out, they found the queen, and the queen tore them apart and killed them, and then the tribe, killed all their men. And so they had to get out of there quick. It was gory. Not good. Our next landfall was on Aiea. I did this. Aiea. I forgot how to pronounce it already. Aiea. Okay, thank you. Aiea. Our next landfall was on Aiea, island of Kirk, dire beauty and divine, sister of baleful Aeetes. Like him, fathered by Helios, the light of mortals on Persea, child of the ocean stream. We came washed in our silent ship upon her shore, and found a cove, a haven for the ship. Some god, invisible, conned us in. We landed to lie down in that place 2 days and nights, worn out and sick at heart, tasting our grief. But when dawn said another day is shining, I took my spear and broadsword, and I climbed a rocky point above the ship, for sight or sound of human labor. Gazing out from that high place over a land of thicket, oaks, and wide watercourses, I could see a smoke wisp from the woodland hall of Kirk. And I think this is, if I look up Kirk, pronounce
Kirk.
Yeah, okay. Kirk. So I took counsel with myself. Should I go inland, scouting out that reddish smoke? No, better not, I thought, but first return to waterside and ship, and give the men breakfast before I sent them to explore. Now as I went down quite alone, and came a bow shot from the ship, some god's compassion set a big buck in motion to cross my path. A stag with noble antlers, facing down from pasture in the woods to the riverside. His long thirst and the power of the sun constrained him. He started from the bush and wheeled. I hit him square in the spine midway along his back, and the bronze point broke through it. In the dust he fell and whinnied as life fled away. I set one foot against him, pulling hard to wrench my weapon from the wound, then left it, butt end on the ground. I plucked some withies and twined a double strand into a rope, enough to tie the hocks of my huge trophy. Then pick-a-back, I lugged him to the ship, leaning on my long spear shaft. I could not haul that mighty carcass on one shoulder. Beside the ship, I let him drop and spoke gently and low to each man standing near. It seems more interesting in English than in English. I don't know exactly what that means. So what this means is that, oh, and then in Spanish, it's something else in English. It's a little complicated. It's poorly worded, in my opinion. I guess it's interesting, but what's happening here? Odysseus, they came onto the land, which is where Kirk lives, and Kirk is like this magic person, and so they Odysseus goes out quite alone, as they said, and a big deer came along, and he killed the deer, and then he took the deer with him, and so like he's gonna like probably eat it, or he's gonna use something with the dead deer carcass that he now has. And so next thing is that, come, friends, through hard beset, we'll not go down into the house of death before our time. As long as food and drink remain aboard, let us rely on it, not die of hunger. At those faces, cloaked in desolation, upon the waste sea beach, we bared. Their eyes turned toward me in the mighty trophy, lighting, foreseeing pleasure, one by one. So hands were washed to take what heaven sent us. And all that day, until the sun went down, we had our fill of venison and wine. Till after sunset in the gathering dusk, we slept at last above the line of breakers. When the young dawn with her fingertips of rose made heaven bright, I called them round and said, shipmates, companions in disastrous time, oh, my dear friends, where dawn lies in the west, and where the great sun, light of men, may go under the earth by night, and where he rises, of these things we know nothing. Do we know anything, any least thing to serve us now? I wonder. All that I saw when I went up the rock was one more island in the boundless main, a low landscape covered with woods and scrub, and puffs of smoke ascending in mid-forest. So basically, he's like, let me bring this dead carcass back and feed my men. And everyone's like, oh, wow, this is great. And then he's like, okay, we have to get out of here. Like during the night, we have to move, and I found that there's woods and puffs of smoke coming from the forest. I went exploring, and that's what I saw. They were all silent, but their hearts contracted, remembering Antiphates, the Lystrigon, that prodigious cannibal, the Cyclops. They cried out, and the salt tears wet their eyes. But seeing our time for action lost in weeping, I mustered those Achaeans under arms, counting them off in 2 platoons. Myself and my godlike Eurylochus, commanding. We shook lots in a soldier's dogskin cap, and his came bounding out. Valiant Eurylochus. So off he went, with 22 companions, weeping as mine wept too, who stayed behind. In the wild wood they found an open glade, around a smooth stone house, the hall of Kirk, and wolves and mountain lions lay there, mild in her soft spell, fed on her drug of evil. No one would attack. Oh, it was strange, I tell you. But switching their long tails, they faced our men, like hounds who look up when their master comes with tidbits for them, as he will, from table. Humbly those wolves and lions, with mighty paws, fawned on our men, who met their yellow eyes and feared them. In the entranceway they stayed to listen there. Inside her quiet house they heard the goddess Kirk. Lo, she sang in her beguiling voice, while on her loom she wove ambrosial fabric sheer and bright. By that craft known to the goddess of heaven, no one would speak until Polites, most faithful and likable of my officers, said. So basically what's going on here is that Eurylochus takes a big group of men, which is 22 people, and they all go out, they all voyage out to the castle or the house of Kirk. And they found lions and wolves along their journey, and I think maybe some of them died. It's kind of unclear. but like they met lions and wolves. And then they went into the house of Kirk, and she was singing and she was weaving. And then no one would speak to Kirk because she's a goddess, until Polites says, "Dear friends, no need for stealth. Here's a young weaver singing a pretty song to set the air. A tingle on these lawns and paven courts. Goddess she is, or lady. Shall we greet her?" So reassured, they all cried out together, and she came swiftly to the shining doors to call them in. All by Eurylochus, who feared a snare. The innocents went after her. On thrones she seated them, in lounging chairs, while she prepared a meal of cheese and barley, and amber honey mixed with Pramnian wine, adding her own vile pinch, to make them lose desire or thought of her dear fatherland. Scarce had they drunk when she flew them with her long stick and shut them in a pigsty. Bodies, voices, heads, and bristles, all swinish now, though minds were still unchanged. So squealing in they went, and Kirk tossed them acorns, mast, and cornel berries, fodder for hogs who rot in slumber on the earth. So basically, everyone goes in except for Eurylochus, because Kirk invited them in, and then she turns them into pigs. They're pigs now. And then Eurylochus feeds them, because they're pigs. Alright. Down to the ship, Eurylochus came running to cry alarm. Foul magic doomed his men. By working with dry lips to speak a word, he could not, being so shaken. Blinding tears welled in his eyes. Foreboding filled his heart. When we were frantic questioning him, at last we heard the tale. Our friends were gone. Said he, "We went up through the oak scrub where you sent us, Odysseus, glory of commanders, till we found a palace in a glade, a marble house on open ground, and someone singing before her loom a chill, sweet song. Goddess or girl, we could not tell. They hailed her, and then she stepped through the shining doors and said, 'Come in, come in!' Like sheep they followed her, but I saw cruel deceit and stayed behind. Then all our fellows vanished, not a sound, nothing stirred, although I watched for hours." Oh, sorry, not Eurylochus didn't toss them acorns. It was Kirk who tossed them acorns, not Eurylochus. Eurylochus never found them. So that would have been very strange if Eurylochus was the one feeding them like pigs. But Eurylochus is now very worried because all of his men are gone and turned into pigs. When I heard this, I slung my silver-hilted broadsword on and shouldered my long bow and said, "Come, take me back the way you came." But he put both of his hands around my knees in desperate woe and said in supplication, "Not back there, oh my lord! Oh, leave me here! Even you cannot return, I know it. I know you cannot bring away our shipmates. Better make sail with these men quickly, too, and save our lives from horror while we may." But I replied, "By heaven, Eurylochus, rest here then. Take food and wine. Stay in the black hall's shelter. Let me go, as I see nothing for it but to go." I turned and left him, left the shore and ship, and went up through the woodland, hushed and shady, to find the subtle witch in her long hall. But Hermes met me with his golden wand, barring the way. A boy whose lips was downy in the first bloom of manhood, so he seemed. He took my hand and spoke as though he knew me. "Why take the inland path alone, poor seafarer, by hill and dale, upon this island all unknown? Your friends are locked in Kirk's Pale. All are become like swine to sea. And if you go to set them free, you go to stay and never more make sail for your old home upon Thyke. But I can tell you what to do to come unchanged from Kirk's power, and disenthrall your frighting crew. Take with you to her bower, as amulet, this plant I know. It will defeat her horrid show, so pure and potent is the flower. No mortal herb ever was so. Your cup with numbing drops of night, and evil stilled of all remorse, she will infuse to charm your sight. But this great herb with holy force will keep your mind and senses clear, when she turns cruel coming near, with her long stick to whip you out of doors. Then let your cutting blade appear. Let instant death upon it shine, and she will cower and yield her bed, a pleasure you must not decline. So may her lust and fear bestead you and your friends, and break her spell, but make her swear by heaven and hell. No witch's tricks, or else, your harness shed, you'll be unmanned by her as well. So basically, they had to translate it, and they actually kept the rhyming pattern, which is actually the most interesting part of this entire book, is that they kept the rhyming pattern. So basically what happened, the one guy was like, I don't want to go out. It's like, it's really sad. I don't think anyone's going to survive if they go out again. And so Odysseus like, I'll just go on my own. But he's like intercepted by Hermes, and he's like, take these plants. Take these plants. It'll keep your mind clear so that you're not poisoned by Kirk. Kirk will try to poison you. And so try to lift the spell from your men and make sure not to get killed by Kirk. That's basically what he told them. He bent down, glittering for the magic plant, and pulled it up, black root and milky flower, a malu in the language of the gods, fatigue and pain for mortals to uproot. But gods do this, and everything with ease. Then, toward Olympos, through the island trees, Hermes departed, and I sought out Kirk, my heart high with excitement, beating hard. Before her mansion in the porch, I stood, to call her, all being still. Quick as a cat, she opened her bright doors and sighed a welcome. Then I strode after her with heavy heart down the long hall, and took the chair she gave me, silver-studded, intricately carved, made with a low footrest. The Lady Kirk mixed me a golden cup of honeyed wine, adding in mischief her unholy drug. I drank, and the drink failed. But she came forward, aiming a stroke with her long stick, and whispered, Down in the sty, and snore among the rest. Without a word, I drew my sharpened sword, and in one bound held it against her throat. She cried out, then slid under to take my knees, catching her breath to say in her distress, What champion of what country can you be? Where are your kinsmen and your city? Are you not sluggish with my wine? Wonder! Never a mortal man that drank this cup. But when it passed his lips, he succumbed. Hail must be your heart, and your tempered will. Odysseus, then you are, O great contender, of whom the glittering god with golden wand spoke to me ever, and foretold the black swift ship would carry you from Troy. Put up your weapon in the sheath. We two shall mingle and make love upon our bed. So mutual trust may come of play and love. So basically what happened, Odysseus goes in, he drinks the wine, but because he ate that flower, it doesn't work. And so now he can he unsheathed his traditional Japanese katana, holds it up to Kirk's neck, and basically Kirk is like, oh my god, and she bows before him, and she's like, who are you? How are you so good at this? You must be Odysseus, because the gods told me about you. So how about we make love? How about that, Odysseus? Make love with me, Odysseus. I love you, Odysseus. To this I said, Kirk, am I a boy that you should make me soft and doting now? Here in this house, you turn my men to swine. Now it is I myself you hold, enticing into your chamber, to your dangerous bed, to take my manhood when you have me stripped. I mount no bed of love with you upon it, or swear me first a great oath, if I do. You'll work no more enchantment to my harm. She swore at once, outright as I demanded, and after she had sworn and bound herself, I entered Kirk's flawless bed of love. So Odysseus is like, I'm not gonna get in your bed. You turn my men to pigs. I don't like that. You're not gonna betray me like that again. You have to have a great oath in order to convince me. And then Kirk does an oath, and then he goes into her love bed. Presently, in the hall, her maids were busy, the nymphs who waited upon Kirk, 4 whose cradles were in fountains, under boughs, or in the glassy seaward gliding streams. One came with richly colored rugs to throw on seat and chair back, over linen covers. A second pulled the tables out, all silver, and loaded them with baskets all of gold. A third mixed wine as tawny mild as honey in a bright bowl, and set out golden cups. The fourth came bearing water, and lit a blaze under a cauldron. By and by it bubbled, and when the dazzling brazen vessel seethed, she filled a bathtub to my waist and bathed me, pouring a soothing blend on my head and shoulders, warming the soreness of my joints away. When she had done, it smoothed me with sweet oil. She put a tunic and a cloak around me and took me to a silver-studded chair with footrest, all elaborately carven. Now came a maid to tip a golden jug of water into a silver finger bowl and draw a polished table to my side. The larder mistress brought her tray of loaves with many savory slices, and she gave the best to tempt me, but no pleasure came. I huddled with my mind elsewhere, oppressed. So what happened here is Kirk gave Odysseus a bath, like they do in every single gosh darn chapter. They give someone a bath and replace his clothes. Every single time. And then so Kirk is trying to seduce Odysseus, trying to get him in the mood, but Odysseus' mind is on something else. He's not being seduced by the goddess. Kirk regarded me as there I sat disconsolate. Oh my god. As there I sat disconsolate and never touched the crust. Then she stood over me and chided me. Why sit at table mute, Odysseus? Are you mistrustful of my bread and drink? Can it be treachery that you fear again, after the god's great oath I swore for you? I turned to her at once and said, Kirk, where is the captain who would bear to touch this banquet in my place? A decent man would see his company before him first. Put heart in me to eat and drink, you may, by freeing my companions. I must see them. But Kirk had already turned away, her long staff in her hand. She left the hall and opened up the sty. I saw her enter, driving those men turned swine to stand before me. She stroked them, each in turn, with some new trims. Crims? What is that? Prism. Mixture of oil.
Chrism.
Are you kidding me? And then, behold, their bristles fell away. The coarse pelts ground upon them by her drug melted away, and they were men again, younger, more handsome, taller than before. Their eyes upon me, each one took my hands, and wild regret and longing pierced through them. So the room rang with sobs, and even Kirk pitied that transformation. Exquisite, the goddess looked as she stood near me, saying, Son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier, go to the sea beach and see breasting ship, drag it ashore, full length upon the land, stow gear and stores in rock holes under cover. Return, be quick, bring all your dear companions. Now, being a man, I could not help consenting, so I went down to the beach and the ship, where I found all my other men on board, weeping in despair along the benches. Sometimes in farmyards, when the cows return well fed from the pastures to the barn, one sees the pens give way before the calves in tumult, breaking through to cluster about their mothers, bumping together, bawling. Just that way, my crew poured round me when they saw me come, their faces wet with tears, as if they saw their homeland and the crags of Ithaca, even the very town where they were born. And weeping still, they all cried out in greeting. So basically, Odysseus is like, I am not going to make love to you or eat your feast until you convert my men back into men. And so she does that, and then she's like, okay, go down to the beach, and like just stow some gear under some covers, and then like just like put it on the beach, or stow some gear on the beach. And then when Odysseus comes back, everyone's like, it's Odysseus! Ooh! So now they're very happy. Prince, what joy this is! Your safe return. Now Ithaca seems here, and we in Ithaca. But tell us now, what death befell our friends? And speaking gently, I replied, first we must get the ship high on the shingle, and stow our gear in stores and clefts of rock for cover. Then come follow me to see your shipmates in the magic house of Kirk, eating and drinking, endlessly regaled. They turned back, as commanded, to this work. Only one lagged and tried to hold the others. Eurylochus it was, who blurted out, where now, poor remnants? Is it devil's work you long for? Will you go to Kirk's hall? Swine, wolves, and lions she will make us all. Beast of her courtyard, bound by her enchantment. Remember those the Cyclops had? Held. Remember shipmates who made that visit with Odysseus? The daring man, they died for his foolishness. When I heard this, I had a mind to draw that blade that swung against my side and chop him, bowling his head upon the ground, kinsman or no kinsman, close to me though he was. But others came between me, saying to stop me. Prince, we can leave him. If you say the word, let him stay here on guard. As for ourselves, show us the way to Kirk's magic hall. So basically, Odysseus nearly killed one of his shipmates because he didn't want to go with him to Kirk's hall. And so Odysseus is like, okay, let's store all of our gear under these rock covers for protection, and let's go to Kirk's hall to see all of your friends. So all turned inland, leaving shore and ship, and Eurylochus, he too came on behind, fearing the rough edge of my tongue. Meanwhile, at Kirk's hands, the rest were gently bathed, anointed with sweet oil, and dressed afresh, in tunics and new cloaks with fleecy linings. We found them all at supper when we came, but greeting their old friends once more, the crew could not hold back their tears, and now again the rooms rang with sobs. Then Kirk, loveliest of all immortals, came to counsel me. Son of Laertes, and the gods of old, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier, enough of weeping fits. I know, I too, what you endured upon the inhuman sea. What odds you met on land from hostile men. Remain with me and share my meat and wine. Restore behind your ribs those gallant hearts that served you in the old days when you sailed from stony Ithaca. Now parched and spent, you cruel wandering is all you think of. Never of joys, after so many blows. As we were men, we could not help consenting. So day by day we lingered, feasting long on roasts and wine, until a year grew fat. But when the passing months and wheeling seasons brought the long summery days, the pause of summer, my shipmates one day summoned me and said, Captain, shake off this trance, and think of home, if home indeed awaits us, if we shall ever see your own well-timbered hull on Ithaca. They made me feel a pang, and I agreed. That day, and all day long, from dawn to sundown, we feasted on roast meat and ruddy wine. And after sunset, when dusk came on, my men slept in the shadowy hall. But I went through the dark to Kirk's flawless bed and took the goddess's knees in supplication, urging as she bent to hear, "Oh, Kirk, now you must keep your promise. It's time. Help me make sail for home. Day after day my longing quickens, and my company give me no peace, but wear my heart away, pleading when you are not at hand to hear." So basically, Odysseus, like him and his crew stay in the Hall of Kirk, and they feast and they have a good time, and they're in there for months. But then eventually they're like, "Yeah, we should probably go home." And so they go home, or they don't go home. Odysseus begs Kirk to go home. And then the loveliest of goddesses replied, "Son of Laertes, and the gods of old, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier." It's the same description every time. "You shall not stay here longer against your will, but home you may not go, unless you take a strange way round and come to the cold homes of death and pale Persephone. You shall hear prophecy from the rapt shade of blind Tiresias of Thebes, forever Thebes. Oh my god. No, it's not Thebes. Thebes. Thebes, forever charged with reason, even among the dead, to him alone, of all the fitting ghosts, Persephone has given a mind undarkened. At this I felt a weight like stone within me, and moaning, pressed my length against the bed, with no desire to see the daylight more. But when I had wept and tossed and had my fill of this despair, at last I answered her, Kirk, who pilots me upon this journey, no man has ever sailed to the land of death. That loveliest of goddess replies, son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master of landways and seaways, feel no dismay because you lack a pilot. Only set up your mast and haul your canvas to the fresh blowing north. Sit down and steer, and hold that wind, even to the bourne of ocean. Persephone's deserted, stranded, and grove, dusky with poplars and the drooping willow. Run through the tide rip, bring your ship to shore, land there, and find the crumbling homes of death. Here, toward the sorrowing water, run the streams of wailing, out of sticks and quenchless burning, torrents that run in thunder at rock. Here, then, great soldier, setting foot obey me. Dig a well shaft, a 4-arm square, pour out libations round it, to the unnumbered dead. Sweet milk and honey, then sweet wine, and last clear water, scattering handfuls of white barley. Pray now, with all your heart, to the faint dead. Swear you will sacrifice your finest heifer at home in Ithaca, and burn for them her tenderest parts in sacrifice. And vow to the Lord Tiresias, apart from all, a black lamb, handsomest of all of your flock, thus to appease the nations of the dead. Then slash a black ewe's throat, and a black ram, facing the gloom of Erebos. But turn, but turn your head away toward the ocean. You shall see now souls of the buried dead and shadowy hosts. And now you must call out to your companions to flay those sheep the bronze knife has cut down. 4 offerings, burnt flesh to those below, to sovereign death and pale Persephone. Meanwhile, draw sword from hip. Crouch down. Ward off the surging phantoms from the bloody pit until you know the presence of Tiresias. He will come soon. Great captain, be it he who gives you course and distance for your sailing, homeward across the cold fish-breeding sea. Ugh. So basically, Odysseus is like, I have to go home, Kirk. And Kirk's like, the gods are kind of mad at you. You're going to have to take kind of a weird route and go through the land of death. And Odysseus is like, but I can't go through the land of death. And so Kirk is like, she describes everything about what he has to do, what sacrifices he has to do, what gods he's going to please. But really, she's just describing what he needs to do to get home. As the goddess ended, dawn came stitched in gold. Now Kirk dressed me in my shirt and cloak, put on a gown of subtle tissue, silvery, then wound a golden belt about her waist, and veiled her head in linen. While I went through the hall to rouse my crew, I bent above each one, and gently said, Wake from your sleep, no more sweet slumber. Come, we sail, the Lady Kirk so ordains it. They were soon up and ready at that word, but I was not to take my men unharmed from this place, even from this. Among them all, the youngest was Elpenor, no mainstay in a fight, nor very clever. And this one, having climbed on Kirk's roof to taste the cool night, fell asleep with wine. Waked by our morning voices, the tramp of men below, he started up, but missed his footing on the long, steep backward ladder, and fell that height headlong. The blow smashed the nape cord, and his ghost fled to the dark. But I was outside, waiting with the rest, saying, Homeward, you think we must be sailing to our own land? No. Elsewhere it is the voyage Kirk has laid upon me. We must go to the cold homes of death, and pale Persephone, to hear Tiresias tell of time to come. They felt so stricken upon hearing this. They sat down, wailing loud, and tore their hair. But nothing came of giving way to grief. Down to the shore and ship at last we went, bowed with anguish, cheeks all wet with tears, to find that Kirk had been there before us, and tied nearby a black ewe and a ram. She had gone by like air, for who could see the passage of a goddess, unless she wished his mortal eyes where? Okay, so what happened in this book is Odysseus, they landed on the island of, what was it? Something. Iolos. So they landed on the island of Iolos, or Iola, and then they got help from Iolos, and he helped them get out. And so they sailed for like 7 days until they found land. And then when they found land, the gods were mad at them, and they blew them all the way back to Iolos. And then Iolos refused to actually help them this time because the gods were mad at them. And so he's like, get out of here. And so they had to sail on their own, and it took them very long until they finally found land, and it was Kirk's Island. And Kirk turned some of Odysseus's men into swine or pigs. And so Odysseus went out to find his men and like turn them back from swine. And then Hermes gave him a little flower that would help him resist from Kirk's spell. And so he goes into Kirk's hall and drinks his wine, not affected because of what Hermes gave him. And then he threatens Kirk. And Kirk's like, you must be Odysseus. And so she's like, come on, make love with me. And she gives him a bath, and she gives him a feast. And then he forces her to turn his men back into men. And then he goes back, gathers all of his men. They all move into Kirk's home, and they live there for like months and months until they are ready to go back. But they have to go back in a sort of weird route where they have to go through the land of death and Persephone. That's because the gods are mad at them and wouldn't let them back. That's because Polyphemus from before prayed to Poseidon to never let him go back. And so now they're planning to go out and do some sacrifices and be ready to return back to Ithaca using backwards methods because of stupid Polyphemus and Odysseus giving out his name and the place where he's from. Okay.